we're going to talk about a particular product which is hardly at all evident in Africa currently. I'm going to give you some quite surprising statistics on the market. But what we're talking about is what is on the title is called a service apartment. And what does that mean? Well, the differentiating factor between that and a hotel is the kitchen. Whether it be a full-fledged kitchen like this one, you can see the oven, you can see the hob, there's probably a dishwasher tucked away somewhere behind one of those cupboards. So it could be a full kitchen, or it could just be a kitchenette, what I think what the Americans call a utility. And there is then also the differentiating factor. There is very much a separation between living and sleeping space. Within the complex, there may be a pool, there may be a gym, maybe a bar, restaurant, concierge, and basically the higher up the quality level, the more likely you are to have these elements of your extended stay product. There, I've said it. Extended stay is what I prefer as the title, but you'll find different names for this product used by different countries and by different companies. Service apartments, it tends to be the European name for the product. Then you find apart hotels, which is always quite difficult to decide how to spell it. I prefer extended stay because I think that describes the market. They are people staying for extended stays. And then you also have branded residencies, particularly when they're put back into a rental pool, that of course they are going to be apartments with the kitchens and the defined areas. Okay, here's some statistics. Some of you might have been at the pipeline session I delivered this morning, and it gave you some statistics about the total number of deals in Africa in the hotel chain's pipeline. This represents, within the pipeline from the 36 chains that contribute data to our study, this represents the chains, the brands that are in this extended stay segment. And if you look at bottom left, there are 17 deals in the whole of Africa for hotels that will be actually extended stay products. The total number of deals signed by the international chains for new hotels in Africa is 417. There are 2,700 rooms. That's about 3% of the total. The deals are 8 brands in 13 cities in 10 countries. And of the deals, 30% are actually under construction. You have to read into that data, not necessarily that oh goodness, only 30%. Many of them are quite new deals, and therefore that's why they're not on site quite yet. Where are those deals? Well, this is where it's happening. As usual, North Africa appears, Algeria, Egypt, Morocco. Nigeria has a couple of deals. Fraser Suites has just opened in Abuja there, but there's a Residence Inn signed and a Marriott Executive Apartments. Congo, Brazzaville, Gabon, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, South Africa. Those are the brands that are coming in into the market. Those ones that are operating are Arjan. They have a property in Kinshasa. Fraser Suites, I just mentioned them in Abuja. Best Western Executive Residency, recently opened in Nairobi, and Marriott Executive Apartments in Addis Ababa. The others will be new to Africa as and when they actually come on stream. So that's the pipeline. So I got one of my staff this week to have a look, and I said, how many extended stay hotels are there in Africa? Anybody? Not you, Belinda, you did the research. No? Go on. Speak up. 5. Any advance on 5? Go on. How many? None? Nah, silly. Nah, there are some. I'd already told you Fraser Suites is open. No, it's 6. So you're 1 out. Sorry, Rob. Extraordinary. I thought, what? There are only 6 branded extended stay hotels operating in Africa currently. And only one of them is, funnily enough, is in North Africa, which has got a very, very mature, very big hotel supply. Only one, and that's Staybridge Hotel in Cairo. So I'll tell you what there are. There's a Marriott executive apartment in Addis Ababa, Fraser Suites in Abuja, Nigeria, executive residency by Best Western in Nairobi, Staybridge Cairo, Arjan Kinshasa, and a Radisson Blu residence in Maputo. Those 6 properties between them have just 640 units. Anybody who knows the Hilton Hotel in Abuja, one property, has more rooms than all those put together. So, I think the panel needs to come up and explain themselves. Can I introduce my panel? Carl DeLacy from Best Western, Selim El-Zain from BDNSP in Dubai, and Drew Pandit from Kenya. Sorry, AVP, Selim, beg your pardon. So come and join us and answer for yourselves. This sector is huge in North America, and in fact all the research that one can get relates to the sector in North America. And then we find Africa is so underrepresented by the extended stay segment. But the extended stay segment surely is something that many, many cities, if not every major city, could take because of the nature of demand coming into Africa. A lot of it is long haul. A lot of it is long stay. So, Dhruv, you are the developer, the owner of an extended stay product. Do you want to tell us about that? And also your research when you decided to go that route. Why did you go into and build an executive residency by Best Western?
So our journey was quite interesting. So we're a family-owned business that develops residential, commercial, retail, and now we've edged into hospitality, obviously. And I think there are tons, and there are many independently branded. So they're not, your statistics show the internationally branded
I'm only
ones.
looking at branded products.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. But the mom and pops have been, we've had it too easy, I think, really. So, you know, we've had expatriates stay with us, we've had the High Commission stay with us, the embassies, you know, anything extended stay. There was no need for a brand before, but now the supply has come in so much so that during the development of our project, actually we only signed with Best Western 4 months before completion. You know,
right.
That's, and in the 2 years of developing that project, actually, what we saw was that the market was changing so quickly, so much supply coming on, and we had to differentiate. And I had all the IP done, all our stuff registered, trademarks, you know, all our stuff done, ready to go. And even then we said, no, we must go one step higher and actually be properly branded. And I think
why
that's
did you choose extended stay in the first place?
For us, it's actually, as I said, it's an edge into hospitality. So we looked at in the research and we actually said that, hang on, wait a second. Let's de-risk our product. So an apartment can always be sold, right? A hotel room individually cannot. So return per square meter is certainly lower, if I had to look at it from a developer's perspective, because they're bigger apartments. You've got that kitchenette in everything. You've got your utility area, as you said, etc. But for us, I think it's a good way to dip our foot into the business and actually understand it. And a year later, I think we're doing really well. And we'll certainly do more before you ask that question. There's certainly a bigger opportunity out there.
Okay. And were you aware you were one of only 6 branded products in Africa?
Absolutely. In fact, we thought we were only, when we started the conversation with executive residency, I think we were only one of 3, in fact. Okay. Possibly 2.
Okay.
Because Marriott just beat us to it, I think.
Right,
yeah.
right, okay. Well, they're bigger than you. So.
Well, somebody's got to start somewhere, right?
Okay, let's flip to Salim. Salim's based in Dubai. Perhaps you could explain, you're not in Africa, I know your company is not in Africa, perhaps you could explain your experience of extended stay development, first of all, in the Middle East, yeah, what you see in the sector.
Well, again, I think in the Middle East, service apartments, extended stay, the condo business model as well, it made a lot of sense for us as a company. Especially we are Dubai-centric. So we looked at the market and we said, again, where's the gap? And there was a lot of five-star hotels, and we decided to go for the service apartments. In addition to the service apartments, we also built some mixed-use, hospitality, service apartment, and also four-star hotel, combined in one plot under one building. We saw a lot of potential for extended stay, not only because of the region, but also because of the business model itself and what it represents. As a developer, we also look into developing and also selling the units that we develop, and we saw that there is a bit of an uplift in the values of those service apartments that you brand, for example, over and above what you can sell as a residential development. And this was also an extra push for us to go for the service apartment business model, or what you can call also a condo business model. I mean, you discussed the US. Obviously, this is where the beginning of that came from. It's from the US, where they have a lot of condo business models, and a lot of developers use the income that they receive from these units to finance the other side of a mixed-use development, whether it was residential or retail. So the attractiveness is twofold. It's the demand, the lack of supply at the time, and it's also the ability to sell those business units, service apartment units within the mixed-use development overall. So that's what attracted us to service apartments.
And do you, in your portfolio, you have full-service hotels, yeah? As well as extended stay?
We always have a mix. We never have a hotel on its own. We always have a hotel and a service apartment in
Right.
mixed use, and also probably residential. So it depends. Obviously, if you're going up on a high rise, you'll have perhaps the hotel at the bottom end. Middle would be the service apartments, which you can sell off, and also the residential on top, which you can also sell off.
Okay,
I
know it's difficult to compare, but would you say your serviced apartment properties have a higher occupancy than a full-service hotel?
Yeah, absolutely. The reason why is because of the segmentation that is being applied. We try to push the operators to sell at least 50 to 60% of the inventory on a long-term basis, whether it was through allotment business.
When you say long-term basis, what are you thinking?
We're talking anywhere between 3 months and 1 year.
Okay.
And the advantages of being able to sell those service apartments on that time frame is that you are not bound by certain rental limits that you would get in a normal residential. So there's a twofold benefits as well for us as a hotel owners and hotel operators, for the hotel operators. So this is where we see the benefits in both the service apartments and the residential, mixed as well with the hotel component.
Okay. Carl, Best Western is new, I think, to Executive Residency. When did you actually launch the brand?
So it was 3 years ago.
3 years ago. So for a long time, I forget when Best Western started, but for a long time you were Best Western Hotels.
Yeah.
And then, not that long ago, you started segmenting to Best Western Plus, Best Western Premier. And now you launched Executive Residency to go into this segment as a franchisor. I know you're not quite a franchise, it's actually officially a sub-license, but it acts a bit like a franchise. As a franchisee, a franchisor, what was driving that? Is this America driving this, or where did this come from? What are you thinking here?
It came from the developers, coming to us looking for an opportunity to have an extended stay product, because they saw the value in it. You know, all of our international brands, competitors that are active in North America, had a brand that was suitable for extended stay. And we have owners who own Best Western hotels, Hiltons, Marriott's, and wanted, to have a Best Western option in the extended stay category. So we put the prototype together, with the design teams, and launched it as, if you want to be an executive residency, the property has to be fully executive residency. And then it didn't kick off and didn't start as strongly as we would have hoped. And went back to those developers that asked us, well, why did you want it if you're not going to come to us now when we've got the product? They wanted a mix. So we now have dual brand opportunities. So you can have a Best Western hotel alongside an executive residency. You go in, reception is one reception, you go one way for exec res, and another way for the bedrooms for Best Western Plus, but the ground floor is shared. So that dual brand option lessened the risk for developers, and that allowed us to kickstart in North America. And our second Nairobi property, exec res, will have a Best Western Plus alongside.
And where is it now? I mean, we know we have one. You have one in Africa.
Yeah.
In Nairobi.
Yeah.
Where else do we find executive residency?
The other properties are in North America. We don't have anything in Europe. I know we're talking to various developers in Germany and France about the opportunity, but there's nothing. Druv is one of 2 executive residencies live in the system right now.
Okay, so Drew, what is your product? Can you describe the product that you have there in Nairobi?
So in a word, apart hotel. Because I think when you say extended stay, it automatically closes the mind to a person who wants to come in for the day. So we are actually a business person's hotel. We're in a nice place in Nairobi, Riverside. It's an up-and-coming business hub as well, but it's quite central. So what we're finding is that, yes, we'd go slightly differently. We'd only want to have, unlike Salim, I would say 30 to 40% of our occupancy with 1 month plus, I would say. We've got 1 month to a year stays, and then the rest is just daily or weekly. And I think what that mindset gives to you is flexibility for people, because the traditional serviced or extended stay apartment was a security deposit. You had to give a month's notice before cancellation of contracts, and which business person works like that in this world? Nobody knows where they're going to be in town. They want to check in, check out, just like a hotel. So it's basically an apartment with a hotel service. So your TV, your Wi-Fi, the pool is there, the gym is there, breakfast is served daily. You've got, you can order room service. It's just like staying at the Radisson.
Do you have a restaurant?
Yes, we do, on site, yes.
Okay, and describe your bedrooms, your units. How big are they? What have you got in there?
So we have a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units. Some of the larger ones, what we call the executive ones, are almost, I would say, 120 square meters, 1,200 square feet roughly. Some of them a bit smaller. So there's a decent mix. I wish, this is the thing of being a pioneer, I suppose, is that we would have had more 1 beds. That seems to be more in demand at the moment.
More 1 bedroom.
1 bed in our mix.
I think that's the main demand.
Yes, but the 2 beds have done pretty well actually, and in fact, the world being what it is today, we've got an interesting market of, say, I'll pick an engineering firm that sends in people from South Africa. They've got 2 engineers. They're actually sharing a 2-bed unit, and they're cutting the cost that way. So we're finding there's a win-win in the budget market as well. 48 keys. So just to give you an idea of the size, so I think it's a nice gem in our portfolio, if I can put it this way. The one thing I'd add on to the attractiveness, and you don't have that problem in Dubai, at least not yet, perhaps, is the tax shield, in fact.
The what?
A tax shield, because what's happened is, of course, we're treated just like any other hotel. So I've got 100% investment deduction allowance. I'm claiming back all my VAT. So from a normal residential developer point of view, it's actually a nice yield pickup.
Okay.
So that's worth keeping in mind for anybody else who wants to do that. Yeah.
Can you just describe your public areas? Why do I ask this? Because if you look at what's happening in the States, there's and in a lot of the select service and full service hotels is trying to create a sense of community for the guests. And I mean, I can quote here from some research that
Actually, I just wanted to add one more thing as well, since we're talking about, the attractiveness of the service apartment from a development perspective. You're talking about tax shield. Obviously, in Dubai, there is no taxes yet, but there will be taxes coming in at the beginning of the year, which is the 5% VAT tax, which you're going to have to apply to contracts and consultants, and also apply it to guests who are staying in your hotel. But I think the attractiveness within the service apartment sector and the hotel sector overall is how much space you can save in terms of parking, for example. And just that calculation of having to be able to save, for example, that 30 or 40 parking spaces for service apartments or for hotels makes a big difference in terms of your cost of construction and your ability to pass this on as well to your investors if you are selling on strata, on individual unit basis. So that goes as well back into the calculation, in addition to other items such as the traffic impact studies and all that has an effect on how much GFA you can build for service apartments for hotels.
I totally agree, and in fact, there's another soft or a hidden benefit, if I can put it this way, at least for me, or our family, who are serial developers, because now that you're looking at your residential product, you're actually building them automatically from beginning to a hotel quality. So automatically, that not only, I totally agree with you that my property valuation has gone up straight away, just the building itself, right, the physical infrastructure. But all my future developments value has already gone up, because now you're applying those same design principles, the same thinking, the same discipline, if I can put it that way, to all the other projects. So automatically we're being viewed in a very different way for some of our other projects, which are not, shall we say, for stay, but for sale, for example, straight away. So, there are other different things to look at in this whole pipeline.
Yeah, but I mean, conversely, your unit cost is more expensive because you're giving more space, you're giving the kitchen, you're giving the dining,
yes,
maybe a dining table, which you wouldn't have not even in a suite. So there are some additional costs, but I guess you overcome that by having a higher occupancy. Plus you're saving on car parking, saving on some public areas.
I think you overcome the additional costs of FF&E and OS&E for a hotel or a service apartment that you sell, is just by having a good brand that you can put a premium on the price of that property itself. So for example, if we're talking about the higher end of service apartment, like branded residences, if you take a Four Seasons branded residence or Fairmont branded residence, that can give you an uplift of anything between 30 to 40% over and above what you would sell a residential unit of the same size. And sometimes some of the developers at the higher end of the market are able to pass on the cost of the FF&E and the OS&E as part of a package that they sell to an investor. So they have, for example, 3 or 4 different packages of FF&E and OS&E, and the investor would go ahead and choose what he likes or what she likes. And that would be already built into the cost as well of the unit. So there's certain ways that you can put up the price of a service apartment unit as a developer, simply by having a brand and a good brand that you can demand a premium on.
Yeah, and I think the seasonality thing, I think, yes, higher occupancy across the full year, because in Africa, of course, we have the seasonality problem, right? We are in election year in Nairobi, for example. I'm not worried, my bills are paid, because, we've got that extended stay contract. So we're not, where other hotels were perhaps suffering a little bit with very low occupancy during the election week, we didn't notice. You see where I'm getting from. So you're absolutely right. There is a compensating factor from that. And let me also say the currency thing, right? We're building in hard currency. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter. You say you want to use a pod hotels. I mean, gosh, it doesn't matter what you call it as long as it's successful and making money. But just on this is of course from the States, because there's no research published on the market in Africa. But in the States, the average length of stay is 14 days. Okay. The desired business mix is 50% transient, so you're one nights, and 50% extended stay, because then you can play around with your voids and all that. Now, here's what I wanted to dig into a bit here now, is that what they say is that the average age of a guest is actually reducing. And what some of the chains are doing, and this includes Element, which is coming into the market in Dar es Salaam, what they're trying to do is promote this community in the lobby. That the famous millennials want to sit together and stare at their phones and have the music and have the community. Is that built in? Is this kind of concept built into executive residency? But perhaps you can tell us about the evolution of your product. What's it look like, and what was driving the design?
The large lobby space is something that we recognise as something that's here to stay, and it's not just, we talk about the millennials, but those of us who travel frequently and are that little bit older than a millennial, we'll still use that space to look at our phones or tablets or sit in the lobby and do some work rather than be up in your room. So the lobby space, communal workspace, you get talking to people. When you're traveling, you're by yourself. You want to be able to get to know people or get to know the city, and we allow for local influences in the artworks and the design features. There are requirements. You put the list of different amenities on the picture and the presentation earlier. We do want a green space, so where people can get outside, sit down and relax, and whether it's poolside like Dhruv has in Nairobi, or just a small garden space. In some of our locations, there's a little put planned, so they can they can take the putter out and knock a ball around, just to switch off, even though they're away for business, and then the gym as well to allow for those travelers who want to hold on to the fitness regime that they have at home, to be able to continue that in a good quality gym with the loose equipment as well as the stable stuff to allow for them to be able to maintain their fitness regimes. From a service perspective on the ground floor, whether it be ground floor or upstairs, restaurant, bar is there, and that because that's what people expect when they're traveling. They expect to be able to invite clients in for drinks or a meal in a restaurant if that's what they're looking for. So it's a hotel it's a hotel with all of those offerings, but the bedroom units are that little bit different.
I don't know if Salim finds this, but actually the kitchens there, I think, are sometimes per show. So even the people staying for a year, they tend not to actually use the kitchens that much. It's actually, they love, as you rightly say, that communal space, that communal feel. They will come up and have their meals upstairs. Or if they're not feeling sociable, they'll actually order room service and they'll come through.
Well, research by Skift said that, and this was quite surprising, but it does echo what you've just said, that on a leisure trip, only 9.7% of respondents in a survey said that a fully equipped kitchen was important to them. And on a business trip, only 7%. It's funny, isn't it, that what differentiates the sector is the kitchen as opposed to a hotel suite. But it's not what's wanted. What's wanted is free Wi-Fi and a free breakfast.
Funny you should say that. If you've seen the Best Western brand standards, it's about 36 odd pages, of which 5 pages are on breakfast.
Really?
4 pages are on internet and Wi-Fi, and then everything else.
Okay.
So nothing beats a great night's sleep, right? Great Wi-Fi, hot shower.
Right.
Everything else you can mess up. So we're back to basics again.
Yeah. Salim, we're talking a lot about Best Western because that's who your two colleagues are. What brands are you working with in Middle East?
Well, currently we have a master agreement with the Millennium brand, and they are running the Millennium Executive Apartments for us, and also the Millennium Hotel. So those are the first 3 hotels, and then we are also looking into developing other hotels which are in the pipeline. and they will be different brands, obviously, but the configuration is going to be more or less the same. It's going to be either service apartments on their own, or service apartments and hotel, mixed as well with residential. We found that to be our winning formula as DR.
Okay. Does what we've been talking about in terms of the product resonate with what your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in terms of the kitchen itself, for example, we found out that the kitchen is quite essential. So it really depends on the market and the target that you are trying to get. We have a lot of GCC clients who like and value privacy. So they also like to have kitchens which are able to have their lunch and their dinners there, and perhaps as well their breakfasts. What we also see is that there's a lot of corporate clients that we have that they would come, a company would come, and they would take, for example, allotment of 2 or 3 service apartments for the entire year, and they would rotate their staff in and out of those apartments. Again, for the professionals, you're absolutely right. Perhaps there's a bit less demand for the kitchen because not many people who are working actually have the time or the energy or the will to go out and cook for themselves. That is a bit contradictory as well to the business model of a service apartment, because what we try to do is always have a limited F&B, particularly because of the reason we have kitchens inside each unit. So the kitchens and the restaurants tend to be much smaller in terms of number of covers. For example, if you take a 198 key service apartment building, you're looking at anywhere between 30 and 40 covers for the restaurant, and there's only one restaurant over there, with a minimal space for the kitchen. But that goes again back to the way that we're doing the feasibilities, and we're discussing as well internally as to how we can increase the net sellable area for that property. And we try to reduce as much as possible, for example, the design of the corridors. We try to maximize the space that we give to the units, because that's what's generating revenues for us. We also try to minimize the back of house areas, because obviously if you don't have F&B, which takes the most in terms of servicing, you can also increase your efficiencies within the building itself. So as a developer, we're always looking at that number as to how efficient is the building. How can we maximize the number of units within that building? That will drive our financial model and our returns as well in the long term. Again, most of our units for service apartment consist either of studios with a kitchenette, 1 beds, those are the majority, and then we also have some 2 beds and a very small number of 3 beds. We find that during the design stage it's quite important to do value engineering and make sure that when you build a service apartment unit, perhaps you build the studio, and then right next to it you build the 1 bedroom or the 2 bedrooms, and you do an interconnecting door. That way you're able to maximize the utilization of that of these units to different segments within the market throughout the year. So we found that to be a winning formula as well for us.
Carl, I want you to imagine that you're making a pitch to a potential developer. This has not been rehearsed, by the way. Potential developer, let's say Andrew Rogers. Put your phone down, Andrew, pay attention. You're making a pitch to Andrew. He's got a nice piece of land in a city centre somewhere in Africa, and he's not quite sure whether to build a full-service Best Western or an executive residency. What's your pitch to somebody regarding the benefits of executive residency?
So I suppose when we're talking about executive residency, you're hedging against some level of downturn. So when the 2007 crash happened, the extended stay product remained stable and saw some levels of increases in revenue and occupancy levels across the United States. So you have the opportunity there to lower the risk. You're also looking at the flexibility of the building. So you can build 2-bedroom units that can be split, so that if if you're overselling the one bedroom, lock the door into the second room and sell it as a one bedroom. And it allows then for additional sales. Rather than having to upgrade and clean the two bedrooms, you're selling a one bedroom unit, and the option then is you have long stay, which is a percentage of the business, and the short term stays for the transient business, for, as Drove says, the apart hotel concept.
I think I agree as well with Carl in terms of trying to get flexibility within the units that you sell. And these days you get companies, interior designers and companies that will do fantastic jobs for you. As Carl was saying, if you have somebody on the long term staying with you for 3 months to 1 year, perhaps you can sell 50% of that inventory on that level, and then you would have the flexibility within the unit itself. For example, if you have a kitchenette, to just close that door and sell those units on a shorter period, just as you sell a normal hotel room. And the flexibility that you get these days with design and interior design as well, it gives you that ability to have a hotel within the service apartment at the same time. And as Carl was saying, having a service apartment is very good for hedging against the bad times. You have this base business where you're relying on long-term business, so more or less your fixed costs are covered. And with the remaining inventory, you either close it and sell it off as a hotel, or you sell it off as service apartments, and you have that flexibility to do what you want and yield on that additional inventory that you have.
And I'll also make a point about the city. Where is your piece of land in that city? Because depending on the development approval, you might say, no, this is not zoned for hotel. For a serviced apartment, no problem. So, your user change, right, suddenly becomes very important depending on your micro market.
And the rate.
Well, on that, I mean, the quotations I was looking for was that and this comes from a Hilton brand, Home2 Suites, which is purely in America, says that the guest who has a longer stay has different needs, and those needs drive behavior, the guest behavior. This is a focus on the stay experience and the living space. Yeah, so it's not totally focused on the comfort of the bed, which is so often what I'm not criticizing what the full service trains are, heavenly bed and all that. Okay, so it's a living space, a desire to maintain their normal routine. Okay, like they were at home, a need to feel nurtured and taken care of while away from home. Could you adopt hospitality in Africa to cater to what I think are real needs here of the longer stay guest?
I mean, I think you can. In Drove's case, he's engaged with a third-party operator to run the hotel. They have experience in the extended stay sector and deliver a customer experience that allows for those some level of home comfort, but also somebody to take care of me as I arrive, as I'm staying in the hotel. And if I look at the guest satisfaction scores for the executive residency, it indicates that it can be done with the right team, leading and training the staff that are delivering the service on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, I'll just give a story, if I may.
Yes, please do.
Seeing all the housekeeping staff smile at 2 4-year-old, I think 4 or 5-year-old twins running around the property, because that's what people do. And they were smiling. They weren't a nuisance. And that speaks to the need of the family. They felt safe.
Yeah.
That the children could walk around, that type of thing, which you not necessarily would do in a large hotel, for example. Right? So, you've got to keep all of that family behavior in mind, absolutely. Those are the needs. And I love that word nurture. That's exactly what it is. Because when you know that, and my third-party operator, Samantha's around somewhere, if you went and asked her, you know it when the housekeeping has got that little Christmas bonus. Nobody asked for it. Nobody expected it, but they felt that it's like part of your own domestic family or your domestic staff. They actually were treated that same way. And that's when you're getting that need right.
This report says what sets these guests apart is their desire, actually their absolute requirement for the comforts of home on long-term hotel stays, which quite frankly you don't get in a hotel bedroom. You become stir crazy after a few days in a hotel room. But yeah, so the living space has to accommodate that.
It's the weird little stuff, like we're getting some of the best reviews because everybody's happy with their Apple TV. So forget the 15 channels, and brand standards mean we have to have 15 channels, but actually, oh, you've got a smart TV, I can have my Apple TV just like I'm watching Game of Thrones wherever I am.
You're not having to adapt your behavior.
Right, I need to watch my series, I'm watching, you know, Suits or whatever it is, you know, or my sports match.
So it's just like home, as opposed to so many hotels which call themselves home from home, and you think, my home ain't like that. Any questions? Andrew, we have a mic, please, at the front. Perhaps you can say who you are.
Sorry, it's Andrew Rogers from AHA Hotels and Lodges. Just a question to the panel on the refurbishment costs. So typically you're building a larger unit. In many cases, you're not necessarily getting a rate premium above a typical hotel in the regions in which you are trading. You may have somewhat of an uplift, but on the longer stays, I would imagine there's slight discounting taking place. But the point being is that when it gets to the sort of 10-year or the refurbishment cycle, and you may not have enough in that replacement reserve, do you not find that there's often a shortfall? Because you're not just refurbing a typical hotel bedroom, you're in fact looking at a number of appliances that would, I suppose, come at an additional cost. I suppose just that's my real question, is that you know, how do you fund that shortfall?
Salim?
Well, I mean, the easiest answer to that question is that you got to put your hand in your pocket and fund that shortfall if there's a shortfall. But again, FF&E shouldn't be used in normal course of business to refurbish a hotel. It should be used to replace some of the operational items within the hotel, such as a coffee machine or if a couch gets broken, for example. A good planning is essential. So once you have your hotel up and running, the first 5 years, for example, you should put some money aside. If there is any money aside from the EBITDA, which is the bottom line, and plan it that way. That is if you own the hotel yourself or the service apartment yourself. But if you have sold off the units to the individual investors, then obviously within the sale and purchase agreement with those unit investors, you would ask them to also contribute a certain amount on a yearly basis besides the FF&E fund. That's the way that we go about it. Again, it's really putting aside maybe 3 or 4% from the revenues of the hotel on a yearly basis for the next 5 years, and to sit down as well with the operator and to be very frank with the operator, for them to give you a capital expenditure plan for the entire hotel. And this is where you have asset managers come in very handy for your hotel, where they would be able to monitor that the operator is doing the maintenance that is required, because the biggest expenditure that you would find as an owner of a hotel is chillers and boilers and the big mechanical MEP items. Obviously the furniture also needs to be replaced, but that very much is a business decision that you would take maybe a year or two before you actually do the renovation, depending on where you stand within your competitive set. Whether or not you are losing average room rate and occupancy due to a new arrival in the market, and where you stand in terms of positioning. But the biggest items that need to be replaced are the MEP items within the building, and you need to really plan with this 5 years ahead with the operator.
I'll just make a point about the in-room costs. But this is a guess. Remember, we've only been open a year, but I see my longer-term guests, our long-stay guests, the 50%, or we'd say, or perhaps a little higher, actually treating the hotel room better. Because your daily guys come in and, you know, there's no harm to trash, but here, if you're living in it week on, week out, you're actually treating it nicer. You know, you're not being rough, for want of a better word, or, you know, just scratching for the sake of scratching or whatever. There is a little bit extra on the spoons and forks and, you know, glasses being broken and dishes and whatever else, but that's really marginal. And I completely agree that if you value engineer it right in the first place, with slightly harder wearing finishes, for example, you know, and you keep your maintenance ongoing, right? Don't wait for that 10th year, then you're fine, I think. So there's a bit of a balancing act that goes on a little bit in there as well. So it's not all one way, if I can put it that way.
Interesting. Another question? Gentleman in the front. Can we have your name?
Yes, I'm Hubert Masoni. I'm also considering a serviced apartment development here in Kigali. Can you comment on the profitability of the serviced apartment business based on what you've seen?
Just on.
So I didn't hear the question.
What's the comment on the profitability of the service department operations?
Percentage-wise? Again, it depends on the market. I mean, if you're looking at the Middle Eastern market, the profitability is usually much higher than it is for a hotel. To put a number on it, I would say anywhere between 40% to 50% from revenue. That's something that you can expect if you're running in a good, in a good location, such as in big cities. You should be able to do much better than you would be doing as comparable hotels. So the reason why is, again, the operational cost for service apartments is much lower than a hotel, especially because you don't have F&B. F&B really sucks up a lot of your payroll costs within the hotel. And nowadays, in developed market and developing market, you can really outsource a lot of your activities to other companies. For example, if you take your housekeeping, there are companies nowadays that come and the contract with you on a per room basis. So if they clean a room today, you pay them. If they don't clean that room, you don't pay them. So it goes up and down with your occupancy. So that becomes a variable cost. You can also outsource your security, your valet, even your MEP. Which is the maintenance part, to a facility management company that would come in every once in a while. So a service apartment can be run really extraordinarily lean, and that can drive your profitability quite high.
Well, if you limit your public areas, you become a much simpler business, don't you?
Yeah.
So you can outsource
much more efficient.
An awful lot.
Absolutely.
I stayed in an adagio hotel once. It was in Germany, so there were issues there about labor laws and how expensive it can be to employ someone. But this 150-room hotel ran on 10 permanent staff. Everything else was, maintenance was outsourced, housekeeping, so you'd ring up the night before and say, I've got 50 rooms tomorrow to service. And they would do them on a per room cost. So you're simplifying your business, and therefore your profitability is going.
Absolutely. I mean, there's an adagio in Dubai as well that's running on the same similar concept with only 9 employees. It's around 200 keys. And they have 9 full-time employees, and the rest of the employees are all outsourced. It's a very nice model to have as an owner, and to have an operator that is understanding and is willing to go with you on that business model is even better.
I suspect it'll be very different in Africa, actually, because we don't have that full capability to outsource everything. There is an opportunity of a business, but you can't do it on 6 properties across the whole continent, right?
Yeah,
but just to finish that,
sorry, go ahead.
Just to finish that, to answer your question on profitability, remember, I'm coming from a normal residential point of view, not a hotel point of view. So I suspect, we're seeing it much more profitable for us. Maybe not as high as you say, because we do have that hotel brand standards to keep up, and a significant F&B. But then that also becomes a revenue center as well. So we're finding a lot of people coming in, not just guests, coming in for our F&B, and there's an opportunity to upgrade that over time as well. I suspect in Africa we have to be a bit more patient than you, simply because of those challenges of outsourcing and being a lean, mean operation, if I can put it that way.
Even in Nigeria, though, we are seeing more outsourcing of housekeeping, of laundry, of some other things. Security has always been outsourced for security reasons.
Sorry, I'm laughing at laundry. Sorry, I'm laughing at laundry because we got somebody else. The one time I just tried on one of our other properties, and we got somebody else's linens back.
Oh, well,
you know what I mean? That sort of thing happens.
That used to happen. I wonder, though, in certainly somewhere like Lagos, whether you could afford to get rid of your restaurant completely, because not many people will want to go out for eat, so you can't simplify it as much, perhaps, as you can in others. And thank you to my panel, Salim, Carl, Drew. Thank you so much.